Today we're taking a look at the Uni-T UPO1204 4-channel oscilloscope. This was sent to me for review by Uni-T. No money's changed hands, and I can say whatever I want about it. This thing is pretty neat. It's a 200 megahertz, 2 gig samples per second oscilloscope, and it's fairly modern, and I'll show you why. So first of all, it's got a little bit of a soft power switch, so I'll turn that on. And while that thing boots up, I'll let you know that as with a lot of Uni-T tools these days, this comes with a Certificate of Calibration. I don't want to block the screen, but this has been calibrated with traceable instruments, and those instruments have traceable calibrations and so on, so this can be used in industry. This thing I find is at a little bit of an interesting price point, $730 Canadian, and it's quite a compelling value for a 4-channel scope. Why I wanted to boot this up is because the interface on this, if you're used to something like the Rigol DS1054Z like I have, the interface is so much snappier on this thing. It's incredible how fast it goes. We'll get a waveform on the screen for you in a moment. It comes with 2 packages of these passive probes. I don't know which part number actually comes with these. I'll put it on the screen because the package is just a generic for all of them. But they're fairly good. Nothing too fancy, nothing too horrible either. They're just pretty good mid-range probes. And let's plug this in here, and I'll show you how fast the auto adjust works. So I'll put that on the probe compensation port. Oops, a little bit backwards. There we go. And go the auto adjust. My favorite button. I tell all beginners to use that. There we go. See how fast it is? And look at the UI speed. I'm going to try not to block the camera here. But this is really fast. Oh, going to get it to a scale we can see. It's not at all like the older scopes using slower processors. This is pretty fast. I like this thing. Just taking a look on the back here, you get an IEC cable with a solid rocker switch. This thing does put out quite a bit of heat, which is interesting to note. There must be some good processing going on there. External trigger, there's an auxiliary, there's a LAN port and a printer port, so I believe that is a USB host. I think both of these you can use to control it. You do need a bit more depth because of that IEC cable sticking out, so it's not really as slim as it looks unless you get a angled IEC cable. But the weird thing is the cooling fan on this is actually not loud. For it pumping so much hot air, it's not loud, but it does have like a hum noise, almost like a neon transformer. I'm going to put my mic up close. I'm not sure if the noise cancelling will grab it. Hopefully you were able to hear that. And just to show you how slim this thing is, it does have feet that you can fold out. So it's quite stable like that. I only have the front one folded out for now. Lots of room for your cables to fit back here because the ports are on this surface here, not on this one here. But as you can see, the IEC cable sticks out quite a distance past the unit. So you definitely can't put this right up against the wall. And on top of that, I don't think I would because of the heat coming off of this device. There is some processing going on in there for sure. The first thing you're probably going to want to do when you get this scope, if you're like me, is to customize it. If you see the measurements on the bottom here, I want this on every single one of my scopes. So you just hit the measure button, and then you go the user defined, and then you go around and you click these things on and off. And so you have all sorts of things that you could have on the screen at all times. The only thing is that you only get 5. So you get 5, and that's across all 4 channels. I would have loved to see that a little bit more, but I can see how the screen might be a little crowded if not. But it is what it is. And then to get out of there, you go menu, and then you can have, you see all of your parameters down there, and I hit menu again to get the full screen so it looks a lot nicer. And again, you've got really fast and responsive UI, which is amazing. You can also get a whole bunch of things on the screen if you just go all parameters on, and that shows you basically everything you need to know all in one place. It just obscures your waveform. So if you have, if you've already done your capturing, for example, then you can come and read off these parameters. So this will do all the math for you. Also important to note that it's actually pretty quick to get into the 1x to 10x multiplier for the probe. So you just select your channel, then you go probe, and then here's your probe type, and you put your amount of time. So 1x or 10x, the ones that come on here, but you can also set a custom amount. And so you select what you're at, and then you hit enter like this. Actually, this probe is set to 10x, so we can just go and put 10x, and there we go. Now we have the accurate results. 3 volts peak to peak, 10 megahertz or 10 kilohertz frequency, 3 volts max, and minus 40 millivolts minimum, so it's almost a 0. And you can also change your probe type to just change your display, voltage or current. And you've got your units here, volts, watts, U. Not sure what U means, user defined probably. But just to make your measurements a little bit more clear. The menus are fairly easy to navigate, but you do have to remember where everything is. So here's your measure menu, and if you have anything else, you hit this button to go to the next. So there's the next, then acquire, and this one has no next, so it does nothing. Then storage, you can save waveforms onto USB, so that's good. You can change the file name and everything. And again, no other here, but you just go save and it'll go and store it. You can even set a custom path, which is nice if you have multiple projects on the go. You've got your measurement cursors. You can turn them on or off over here. So off, on, so there's on. And then you can turn them off the same way. Get them off the screen. You've got your display menu. The backlight is at max right now. I really would prefer if the backlight went a little bit brighter than this. I think that is probably going to be had in the higher end models. But right now, this is fine. Actually, it's perfectly fine for a well-lit office space or something like that. But under the studio lights, it does get swamped a little bit, but it is brighter than the DS1054Z. So it is a more modern display. The utility menu here, you can do the self-calibration, you get the system info, so what you have unlocked on it and everything. You get your home menu where you can pick up all of your additional stuff. The self-test is in here. You've got the bus set, that RS-232, that's for stuff coming in on the back. You've got this gen button, which is the arbitrary wave generator, and it says you have to purchase the MSO1000X series model from an authorized dealer. So it's a button essentially that does nothing, which is interesting. I don't really know what to make of that. And then you can clear the menu by hitting gen again. You got your navigation menu, so time or mark or segment. You have your set to system default, so it's a button there, and I will not do that because then I'll have to reset my my brightness. And then your screenshot button, and you just need to put a USB device for that, so it's just this button there. Then it's got the regular features you'll see on pretty much any scope. You've got your run stop, your single shot mode, and your auto set button. If you're a beginner, the auto set button is the thing you'll be using the most probably. You've got an easy way to turn on and off your channels, but if you single click it, it'll also give you the options for that channel. You've got here the ref, so you can change the reference selection. You've got your digital button, which means which says LA not support. I'm not sure what LA stands for, but you have to purchase an MSO1000X series model for that. So again, a button that does nothing, probably just because it's on the other models. You've got your vertical position like normal, your vertical scale, your horizontal position, your horizontal scale, and then of course you can click the middle buttons to set this to 0. And you've got this for your zoomed in scale. Same thing on the vertical. Actually, on the vertical, you got the fine adjust, I should say. And then your trigger position, same as usual. Your trigger menu, so you get to change your trigger parameters there. And you can force the mode into, you can change the mode into auto, normal, or single shot. Or single shot is accessible there too. Lastly, it's got a USB Type A on the front here. This is for your USB, but I will use it for something even better. So as this is a 200 megahertz scope, I don't really have a function gen that can go up that high, but I do have the UTG 962E. And what's fantastic about this one is you can plug it into USB, and therefore it is plugged in just to the front of this scope. So it's really nice that the function gen and the scope can work independently with just one power cable. So here we go. Let's show you the speed at which it auto captures. So I'm just going to turn on the output. So here we've got I think it's a 1 megahertz sine wave, 2.5 volts peak to peak, 50 ohm terminating resistor, and this is set to the 50 ohm mode. So we go auto set, and it'll acquire it. There we go. So we're showing 24.8 volts peak to peak. So we know what the problem with that is. We need to go over here. We need to grab the probe. We need to make it 1x, like so. Turn it back on. And there we go. Turn off the menu, get the full screen. So yeah, 2.44 volts peak to peak. This says 2.5. 1.00 megahertz. So either this is accurate or this or both. And then it looks like we have 1.28 on the positive, minus 1.24 on the negative. So this one might be struggling a little bit with negative voltage. So let's see if we can change the speed here. So I'm going to go up as high as I can, 20 megahertz on this, but you'll see, I do believe, look at that fast interface. So this is supposed to be a square wave, yeah, but it is quite rounded off because I don't think this thing has enough juice to drive through a 50 ohm load resistor. So let's switch this. There we go, it's set to a sine wave now, and let's crank this up as high as it'll go. So there's our 60 megahertz. I'm going to auto set here, and we'll see the capturing is very smooth. Look at how pretty that sine wave is. And we are reading 60, it's faltering a little bit, 60.1 to 59.8. I don't know if it's this thing or it's probably not this, because this has a lot of bandwidth, but this guy here is probably faltering because it's at the very top of its use case, and it's pushing it through a 50 ohm load. But there we go. It works really well. And again, like I was saying, the UI is incredibly fast and responsive, which is great. You don't get that from a low-end scope. Usually low-end scopes, they cheap out on the processing for the display. And so, yeah, your UI is really slow. This one is good. Putting it into the higher time bases will also set it into roll mode, which is really phenomenal too. It works really well. This is at 100 millihertz, and it's showing us a heartbeat, but I can also speed this up. And here it is at 1 hertz, and you still get quite a bit of information. And I can zoom in. There we go, 500 milliseconds per division. And it's looking fantastic. Let's see how fast it is at single shot mode. So right now it's in the roll mode. I'm just going to hit single, and look, immediately it's ready to go, which is really nice. My DS1054Z takes a little bit to get ready to go. So I'm just going to turn on the function gen. Bang, look at that. Got the trigger, and I believe, yep, you get as much detail as you could possibly want. Look at that. Look at how fine you can adjust it. Take a look at your waveform in real time that you've just captured. Really nice. Another thing I want to show you guys is that the probe compensation port here is actually adjustable on this. So you go Utility and I/O set, and there's your square wave, and you can choose the frequency down to 10 hertz. So 10 hertz, 100 hertz, 1 kilohertz, and 10 kilohertz. I set it for 10 just for fun, but if you want the regular square wave of 1 kilohertz, you can just set it like that and then do your probe compensation. I haven't compensated this one. The probes do come with a little plastic screwdriver to change the probe compensation there. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, what's the point of a 4-channel scope? Well, there wasn't much point before. I found with the really small screened scopes, it was very difficult to justify 4 channels because you can only really comfortably fit 2 on the screen. But since I've got 2 of these UTG 962Es at my disposal, I just set these to random values. So let's just turn all the channels on and go auto set, and I'll show you what the point of a 4-channel oscilloscope is. This is it here. So it's triggering right now on channel 2, it seems, but as you can see, it is acquiring data on all of the channels. And with a screen this bright, you can actually see everything in nice vivid colors, and there's enough resolution that you can actually make out what's going on. Now, it would be nice if you can set more than 5 user parameters down here, but I think the 5 is enough to get the gist. Anyways, you can stop the recording and zoom in and have a look anyways. So there we go. All the way down here to all the way up here. So you have enough bandwidth, you have enough memory depth to capture all the information that you need to. You have all 4 waveforms, and you can even move them and superimpose them one on top of the other. So then, with just the first look under our belts, no full review done yet, would I recommend the UPO1204? And I think the answer of that is yes. It seems to do everything that I would definitely need it to do. It has a bunch of stuff that is above and beyond what I need it for. The fact that it's a 4-channel is always handy to have, because I feel like 2 channels are too few, and there is no 3 channels really on the market. So the 4-channel I think is ideal. The price is compelling and the features look good. So it's really up to you, but I wouldn't feel bad recommending this to anybody who is looking for their first or maybe their more capable oscilloscope. What do you think? Thanks for watching.